Hi everybody, we are Team 18, and we did our marketing moments on the ethics of extremely targeted marketing. So just an overview of the topics that we want to cover. We want to look at the pros of target marketing, and then some of the concerns with data mining for target marketing. And then we specifically want to look at the case of Cambridge Analytica. And then we just have some questions to pose to the class for discussion. So to start, we wanted to look at this slide. This is a day in data, and this just kind of shows how much data is being generated and used every day. And so that's why this is kind of an important topic, just because it's in everybody's lives daily. And so when people are using it for good things or bad things, it can cause problems. So next slide. So to start, we're going to look at the pros for the consumers. So for consumers, one of the things that's good for target marketing is that they no longer have to sift through irrelevant products to find the right one. 27% of internet users said that they found new products and brands through paid social ads that were targeted to them. And so this really helps with ease and time efficiency as well, which also is helped by things like saving your credit card information or one-click purchasing when you become like a member. All that information is saved with those companies. Also, looking at free products and services. So social media, Google products, etc. They're all free because we are giving them our data. 77% of Facebook users said that they would not use Facebook if they had to pay for it. And so then some of the pros for marketers. This is kind of the obvious one, big money. So Google made 31.2 billion in revenue in just the first 3 months of 2018, and Facebook posted net revenue of $55.8 billion in revenue. So lots of money to be had for them, for these companies and the people that work for them. Next is pros to the companies that use this information. So they're able to have more efficient use of their ad dollars. And this is just because they can focus in on their target better, which ultimately creates better customer relations. So there was a survey by IDG that said 31% of respondents said that they had improved customer relationships and new customer acquisitions and retention because of targeted marketing. They can also tailor tailor each message to each buyer better. And this helps them to remain more competitive. And so in that same survey, 41% of the respondents said they got a competitive advantage because of targeted marketing. And so this just really shows that companies are able to use this information to better their services for their customers. Next slide. And then there's just kind of a general benefit to society. So there's a couple of examples here. For Facebook, during the 2010 midterm elections, Facebook created a sticker that allowed its users to declare "I voted" on their profiles. And so they used their Facebook algorithm to share this with its 61 million users. And 20% of those users who saw their friends voting also clicked and shared the sticker. So it's estimated that sticker motivated 60,000 voters directly, and then through the social media things going viral, it prompted 280,000 connected users to vote for an additional total of 340,000 voters for just midterm elections. It's also helping improve emergency services and response times. The government has been using data from social media feeds to improve their modeling to react to disasters more efficiently and to help with their mapping when they need to get to certain disaster areas. And lastly, there's been some great steps in reducing healthcare problems and detecting fraud. In May of 2012, the Medicare Fraud Strike Force was able to use analytics to uncover $452 million in false Medicare bills. And then there's also these health tracking apps that can predict health problems and urge users to seek help before they become a problem. And all these things are reducing overall healthcare costs to society in general. And now I'll pass it on to Adam.
All right, so Steph just walked us through how these principles work in action and how it works, but I wanted to sort of drive this home and talk about recent headlines that are very relevant. In the last 10 years or so, we've had a lot of direct-to-consumer brands that have emerged only because of the ability to target their customers in a very specific manner. And these are brands like Dollar Shave Club, Rent the Runway, Bonobos. These are all brands that started out as strictly direct to consumer. They found the right customer through targeted ads, and were able to keep them with good products. So it's really cool to see these brands emerge in such a way where they don't need to have a brick and mortar presence. Another way where we've seen these headlines, we've seen this come up in headlines, is actually this happened this past week. The Joe Rogan podcast, which is arguably one of the most listened to podcasts in the world, signed an exclusivity deal with Spotify. And what that does is, as Spotify sells information to allow people to use listener data as to how to target specific users and demographics. What Spotify has done is Spotify has said, okay, we have a specific demographic that we have access to, that these brands can reach out to directly through Spotify. And for Joe Rogan and his podcast, it makes it very easy because they have one place to worry about distribution, and it's over. And lastly, this trend has also created the ability for both customers and brands of very niche spaces to connect. So whether it's sustainability, whether it's being hyper local, whatever it might be, it's a lot easier for them to find each other because they have this ability to target each other so well. So the brands could find exactly where their customers are hanging out online, and vice versa. The consumers have the ability to find these brands as well. So with this, I just want to quickly show this slide real quick. These are all brands I'm sure all of us have seen that we've probably used. These are all brands that couldn't exist without targeted ads. Again, it's how do you get to the consumer? That's how you open the door, and then you sustain yourself as a good business by having a good product. And these companies have all done that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sid to walk you guys through the other side of the targeted marketing.
Thank you, Adam. Now moving on to some of the other side of targeted marketing and concerns with data mining that we have. There are four primary ones that we saw. First one being data collection without consent, then lost individuality, the data taken out of context, and ineffective data utilization. So, moving on to the first one, the one that we think is the most important ethical issue too is the data collection without consent. This is particularly hard because if someone is not aware of their information being collected, then it's hard for them to give or withhold consent. And as you can see in the numbers to the right, a lot of Americans believe that they have a lack of control over their data, they have concerns over their data use, and they have a lack of understanding of how their data is even being used. There are no specific rules governing this consent, and it makes it really hard to control this, especially when consent is provided by the user for one specific purpose, but can be mined by a number of different miners for different reasons. Now, the next one we want to talk about is loss of individuality. When companies mine this data, they also do it to group people into group profiles. And what this does is it treats everyone in that group as the same exact person. So you, me, or anyone else in that group would be treated as the exact same person. And we lose our individuality in the sense of who we are as a person, what distinguishes us from the other person. This also leads to some form of discrimination where these groups get certain search patterns and get certain items that the algorithm believes that they want, but it might not be what they truly need. Another thing is the data taken out of context. A lot of times when these group profiles are created, there's a lot of data is taken from different individuals' activities and different places and joined together. And these pieces lose the context of why this information originally was provided. This is another controversial piece because now you're using someone's personal life scenarios and attaching it to their profile without the context behind it. And it's very discomforting to a lot of people. Lastly, we want to talk about how this data is utilized. A lot of companies usually become tunnel visioned in this data and become very data focused and don't use it the right way, which causes loss of creativity in the sense that they would rely heavily just on the data, as can be seen in this example on the right with the Amazon purchase for toiletries. And it just makes it so that the customer is disconnected from the advertisement. Another way that this is seen is when companies go overboard with data. Specifically, I want to mention Everglow and Bones Coffee Company in here, which two of our teammates have had experiences with, where they were sold with the company, but having too much ads thrown at them made them irritated towards it. And same way, other customers don't feel like purchasing more of these products. Now, I want to kick it off to Ian, who will talk about our case study.
Thank you very much, Sid. So for our case study, we wanted to look at Cambridge Analytica and the ethical implications that that brought. So next slide, please. So a little bit of background on Cambridge Analytica. It was a consulting firm that was established in 2013 that worked with campaigns, and it was collecting data on potential target markets to have behavioral micro-targeting done. What they did was build psychographic profiles that targeted small groups of voters, and they used this to develop strategies for targeted advertising. In March 17th, 2018, it was revealed that without consent, Cambridge Analytica had harvested data on millions of Facebook users and their friends to aid in building these psychographic profiles. Next slide, please. A general breakdown of what had happened is that Cambridge Analytica had promised that there was a research tool that would be used to make better advertisement decisions. But what had happened is they had taken people's data without their consent and provided that data to a third party. This third party was usually a political party as well, which causes other ethical implications. We have this quote from Christopher Wiley, who worked with Cambridge Analytica to obtain this data, and I think that it summarizes the good and bad viewpoints that the marketing team and business might have had about exploiting these data. Next slide, please. And for the political aspect and the ethical implications, we have John Bolton Super PAC as an example, where they had used the behaviors of different people to make these micro segments and send them targeted videos with placing people as either neurotic or agreeable. And this was something where the videos would be very drastically different based on what they thought the person would like to see. Next slide, please. So to kind of summarize the ethical dilemma, there's points for and points against. The points for are that users agree to the data collection and that the targeted marketing is based on the consumer data and provides more relevant products for the consumer. But the points against are that there is a spread of misinformation and that it's unlikely that people know what data is available to what firms, and that this manipulation is generally perceived as inherently wrong. Next slide, please. We'd finally like to leave you with some ultimate questions that we had when we were talking about this ethical dilemma that we thought would prompt you with our discussion. We would like for you to think about these and come up with your own thoughts, and we hope that this ethical dilemma has intrigued you as much as it has for us. Thank you for your time, and that's all.